job, kitties. Good job, kitties. Dig Dig. Now you know I have your food, don't you? Yeah. Are you hungry for breakfast? My goodness. Today they are getting breakfast courtesy of the local natural food store restaurant. These are their kitchen scraps. And over here we have some other piglets that are waiting for breakfast. And today's feed is courtesy of a local family that we pick up kitchen scraps from. Believe it or not, these pigs are about the same age as the other ones. This is a pure Michon. This is Michon Cooney. And the other ones were mainly Herefords, more of a commercial breed. Our freezer was getting low on pork, so we will be processing the pigs you just saw before autumn, and these guys will still have another year at the farm. Sam, what do you have? Oh boy, look like we popped a leak. These emitters and drip irrigation have been absolute saviors. I remember the days when I'd spend 4 hours a day just watering the garden. And I am so thankful that that is in the past. Welcome back to Ladybug Farm. We have reached the peak of our solar calendar, the zenith, the longest days of the year. It is a time of abundance and pure vitality here on the farm. I'll take you along through our day. We are recording a week prior to the actual solstice this year because we are in this beautiful 1 week gap between our nature immersion programs ending. We just ended Forest Kindergarten, Bittersweet, Forest Homeschool, Mini Monet, our Little Farmers. Those programs have closed out for the year, and we have this week to work on the garden, get things done on the homestead, rest and reset. And next week for summer solstice, we start off with our first summer camp, potion making for the common muggle. We're leading a community event for our nature immersion families with ice cream, and then we're heading out kayaking on another day with our nature immersion families. So we have this beautiful week, and we'd love to share with you a little bit. The frost-tolerant plants, their seeds and transplants were sown in early spring, February and March. Many of those have grown big and strong and lush. It's that beautiful green time of year. And many of those have actually been harvested and enjoyed or preserved. And then came mid-April. It was that time now to get out the warm season plants that are ready for summer abundance. And now those plants are starting to thrive and produce a great harvest. We also have the really heat-loving plants such as your sweet potatoes and your eggplants and your peppers. Those were put in the ground May, beginning of June, and they're still pretty tiny. So you're going to see as we walk through the garden a huge range of things that are thriving and things that are dying and moving on to the next cycle of the garden. We are standing right at the entrance of our garden, walking down from my house to the garden, and this archway has a self-pollinating kiwi, which I gave up hope on. I thought maybe it wasn't self-pollinating because normally your kiwis need several female plants for one male plant, but it just must have been the frost because we are finally getting abundant kiwis growing on here, and that is true for all of our fruit this year. Nature was so kind to us. We normally have last expected frost in April, and the peaches, for example, last year was like a 90 to 100% loss. And the year before that, it was like 60 to 80%. And this year, everything is loaded and lush. It is incredible. We have some baby kiwis popping in. These are not the fuzzy skinned ones that you get at the grocery store. These will be like the size of grapes. They're a hardy kiwi, very vigorous vine. One of our peach trees is looking pretty sad. We actually had to shake some of the fruit off because it is just so loaded. But they are not ripe yet. I'm excited. We've never had a peach harvest before either. Our plum tree was loaded. I had kind of lost hope that this plum was ever going to grow. We've planted 6 of them and we have lost 4 of them, and they have never produced fruit, but we had hundreds. We already put up some plum jam. We juiced them. We were eating fresh for 3 weeks. I let our forest homeschoolers and our forest kindergartners on the last day eat as many as they would like. There's still a couple. This one is not all the way ripe. Here. And they are so tiny because I did not prune the tree, I did not thin the tree, but they are still absolutely delicious. I totally just used the camera to see if I had plum stuck in my teeth, and I totally do. This is our Asian pear. Okay, I think my teeth are good. These were planted by my forest kindergartners on our first day last year. And we have our first fruit. What a legacy. I love fruit trees for that reason. I love planting things in honor of people just for that reason. Our tiny little apple orchard plot is really abundant this year. We definitely had some issues, and then last year we didn't have hardly any to harvest, but that is growing apples in the hot, humid South. They don't like it here, so we are trying some heirlooms that are mainly going to be used. They're cider pressing varieties, so not the eating kind, just matters that we get a good harvest for pressing cider. And I have to step back for you to see this tree right here, our mulberry tree. It has been so abundant this year as well. I received this tree at a seed swap at the Sustainable Egg Conference the year I had resigned from teaching and was following some passions to create something unknown. And I traded some black turtle beans, and this man gave me this tiny little mulberry. It was so tiny. He said, trust me, just take care of it. It will grow into a huge tree. We put it in pots through living in our old house, and then our cabin for a year, and then the camper for a year until it grew roots here. And it has grown so big. It is the climbing tree when the children come out here for garden time at nature school. And it grows so abundantly that about once a month in this season, I just chopped out a whole bunch of branches and I fed that to the goats. It is really high in protein and makes a really creamy milk the next day. So even if some people have been saying don't plant it, it's invasive, it's gonna grow everywhere, it has been an amazing food source for the goats too. So let a problem be a solution. But it's provided some really great shade back here in the understory. In the understory, we planted some blueberries. We have mint growing down here. And behind me, we have a whole pollinator garden planted. If I did not catch my nature school children climbing in this tree or eating the mulberries, I'd find them right here on this fence line. And they would just be sitting here eating this beautiful herb. This is hyssop. I make tea with it, but a lot of our children will just sit here and eat this by the handful. We have thornless blackberries up here that are not ready. And then she's heading over to the area where we have thorned blackberries. All those flowers are elderberries. Abundant harvests. I cut those elderberries back harder than I ever have, and they are still monstrous. Over here we have a grape that we are training. Tomatoes. Sweet potato slips that we put in the ground a few weeks ago. We started those slips in our greenhouse with whole sweet potatoes and then moved them out here. Hopefully in about a month this will make a really nice canopy. Not necessarily these tomatoes, but over here we have beans, and these are the yard-long beans. They do really well in the heat. So my guess is that the tomatoes are gonna die from blight, and these guys will continue thriving and dropping down beans so that our youngest children can stand in here and harvest. In this bed, we also have a whole bunch of beans from Jack and the Giant Beanstalk with our little farmers. We harvested a bunch of those beans and hopefully we will get them in the pressure canner today. What you doing? Leela's still harvesting now onto blueberries. Okay. Okay. Enjoy. Thank you, sir. Back over to a taller hoop. We have tomatoes planted on one side with okra and chicory and pollinator flowers. A muscadine grape growing over the top of that arch. And then a whole bunch of garlic that is almost ready to harvest. And I noticed some milkweed coming up as well in there. So we'll see if we can save that when we harvest the garlic and also an Asian pear that's in here. This bed is pretty much just a pollinator bed. These are fun. These seeds were given to us by Baker Creek, heirloom seeds. We are so thankful. Chocolate daisies, and I kid you not, try them out. They smell like delicious chocolate. There's also some dahlias that I started by seed. We have mint over here, hyssop, a whole bunch of black-eyed Susans. Just a beautiful pollinator bed. This bed was beautiful and abundant, and you can tell I have not weeded it, but we have strawberries. And then we had some onions, and as I ripped out the onions, I put in some sweet potatoes. I think my plan this year has just been diversity. I had a plan where I wanted things to go, but with the fact that when you don't spray anything, you are so at risk to losing a whole harvest of one variety of fruits or vegetables. So if I plant a diversity, it seems that those plants are so much healthier and it's not as devastating if one of them gets lost by a pest or a fungal disease or something. Moving down, we started out with watermelon. And then as those grew, we added some squash and sweet potatoes. You see a lot of black plastic. And it is not sexy, but it is manageable because July just gets into this very overwhelming stage where you can see on this garden bed, I just weeded the whole thing just a couple weeks ago. But we get a lovely rain, we have healthy soil, and weeds grow. So this was all strawberries. And this is the only bed that I did not add compost into this year. And you can so tell based on the quality of those strawberries. This bed here, the kids planted some seeds of flowers and then they transplanted. We have strawberries in here, beans in here, celery in here, onions in here, sage, catnip, summer squash, beans, zinnias, onions, beans, eggplant, onions, more flowers. And this is elderberry. I kid you not, this elderberry, it will send out its runners so far. And once established, it is aggressive. This whole strip next to the elderberries has a thick carpeting underneath it. We live right next to a place that somehow makes carpeting for cars, and they have allowed us to dumpster dive and go in and take rolls and rolls and rolls of this. And if we did not have this down on this side of the elderberries, they would be coming up all over. And just to give you an idea of distance, I am standing here in the apple orchard, and I have pulled out elderberry shoots from all the way over here. They spread. This bed is a hot mess of many cool season things as we transition it over. We have late season beets. We've pretty much harvested all the kohlrabi, the cauliflower. There's still some kale. The texture definitely changes with the kale when it gets this hot, and we make a lot more kale chips rather than kale salads. There's some butternut squash in there that is hopefully getting a little bit of shade from that kale. We just harvested, 10 gallons? Yeah, 2 5-gallon buckets of kale yesterday. So it was a lot more shaded, but now it's definitely getting beat down upon with the sun. Our garlic, just in the last 2 days, I turned the water off, and now it finally has 4 dead stalks. I pulled the scapes about, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. I pulled those scapes off the hardneck garlic, so hopefully we should have some beautiful bulbs. Sour apples. This is Leela's garden right here. One year on Mother's Day, we planted some seeds, and each year she tends to it a little bit more. A whole bunch of beets. Leela and I love beets. So we had a bunch of beets in the greenhouse, and then this was sowing number 2, and then you just saw sowing number 3. The calendula has been so abundant this year. I normally do it in the greenhouse, and then it starts to die out about right now because of the heat. So I got rid of it in the greenhouse, and I had transplants ready to come out here. And I kid you not, we had someone here 2 days ago, and we harvested every single one of the flowers. So we have been harvesting every day or every other day. We have some peppers that are growing up in the shade, some hazelnuts. We have horseradish back there. We have comfrey back here. And then we have a Three Sisters garden bed here. We went for popcorn this year because those earworms are always an issue with the sweet corn. So we're trying out popcorn again, revisiting that so that our children can harvest that at our Mr. McGregor's summer camp. More beans. We have a peach transplanted here that made it. It just weeded like a week ago. Just can't get it all. And then this bed we're letting go feral now that we've harvested a beautiful asparagus crop this spring. Ooh. My children and my forest kindergarten children, who are in love with caterpillars, have been my best defense with pest control here in the greenhouse. They love picking them, and rather than destroying them, they take them home. What was your question?
How big are they supposed to get?
Ooh, wow. Those ones need to get a little bit bigger. Those will be regular sized. And then the Asian longs are over here. Sam, are you hot?
I think these hot ones are nice.
The purple ones? Yeah, they're beautiful. And then these are the Asian long ones.
Okay.
We also have our first butterfly pea flowers of the year. They are sensitive to pH, and they make for lovely teas. So these ones will be starting to be saved for the Nutcracker Tea Party and next week at potion making camp. And in this bed right here, we have some turmeric coming up, a tomatillo, some tomatoes, very late season that I put in because this whole trellis was full of English peas. A lot of the purple king tut peas, they were fantastic, but they always get a powdery mildew once the heat kicks in, and then we get not much, just a couple pints put up into the freezer for the year ahead because we just enjoy eating them fresh for many weeks. In the center here, these are alpine strawberries. Those really thrived. I pulled out so many of the greens so that they didn't get fungal issues. And then down here, that was where we started our sweet potato slips. And I actually did not get all the sweet potatoes out of the ground. This is one. I can pull it and plant it out in the garden. And then we have some holy basil and some tomatoes. But this whole thing on both sides of the alpine strawberries and one more was full of spinach. And they did phenomenal. We ate spinach in our meals till my children weren't happy. It was only a couple times a week for a couple months, maybe a few months. And then we put, gosh, 25, 30 gallons of it into the freezer. I would have harvested more. I ended up feeding it to the goats. But then my husband, after the season was done, got on a green smoothie kick. And he's been making green smoothies every morning consistently. And we've already gone through all that spinach. So note to self, next year we are planting way more. And this was all abundant with potatoes. And we have replaced them with our first attempt at garbanzo beans. Behind me we have a little bit of kale still remaining. Curly kale, one of my favorites. And you can see how the stems, let me move this potato. You can see how tall those stems get. As long as you harvest the outside and save some of the interior, then it continues to grow upward. And it'll go for quite a bit longer despite the heat. It's just that the taste changes a little bit, which sometimes if you leave it in the refrigerator for a day can sweeten it up a little bit. If we're making the massaged kale salads, we just add a wee bit more honey. But as I mentioned, really good for making kale chips. Oh, really? It is time for us to harvest a bunch of things for our chicken noodle soup that we started this morning. Yeah, the chickens will eat that. I'm going to keep going and harvesting carrot. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Hey, what are you doing back here? Got a bad tomato. Darn caterpillars.
Two more.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, caterpillar. You're lucky what any of you guys get to live longer. I found two more.
You can smell your catnip that you planted. Probably harvest a bunch of that.
Where's the catnip?
Right here. I don't, technically you didn't plant that one, but we must have planted the kale, and then there must have been a catnip when we transplanted that kale. Remember how tiny the seeds were?
Yeah, I probably got a catnip in there. To pick one.
perfect amount for soup. This is also with us eating carrots a few times a week for dinners. Children at our school have been harvesting them almost every week. And we also left some to grow bigger. Next, we are off to harvest some celery. We have two kinds, but this pink has been lovely. Baker Creek also donated this as something fun to do with our children. You can actually see that's actually Brussels sprout. I like to leave the plant roots in the ground so that they can return nutrients to the soil, but they do tend to pull up every little bit. So as long as you harvest from the outside, your celery will continue to grow. Just like with the kale. So here we are left with our celery, able to still grow out from the center. It smells so good here because of the lemon verbena. We do have strawberries. Oh, he wants to show you one more thing he found. Back up. He's still going hard. My best defense against pests. Children. And then all along this bed, these are shallots. They are ready to harvest those. I was going to harvest them on the same day I do all that garlic. But we have a whole bed full of them with strawberries planted all among. I also just harvested some stinging nettle. It is nowhere near the dark, vibrant, lush green that it is in the cooler weather. It does not like the heat, but nonetheless, it is going in the broth pot. We are off to get some thyme, plantain, oregano, lavender. We've just harvested a whole bunch of weeds, and chocolate mint in there, yarrow's in there. We have a beautiful spring bulbs that come out, and here's the thyme we're looking for all mixed in. Goaties have been completely open to the forest for actually the past month. We tend to rotate them sooner than this, but they do not go far. They love they love being close. This time of the day they find some shade and come back into the pasture. Come on, goaties! Come on! I have carrot greens for you. Hey, Nemo. We have made some big changes to our goat herd this year. You'll notice that Red, our really good dwarf Nigerian milker, is no longer here. And you will notice that Venus, which is Oreo's baby, a Nubian, was a first-time freshener, amazing milk producer. She's no longer here. Finny's no longer here. And all of the spring babies except Persephone, which is first-generation mini Nubian, all the babies have found new homes too. So that was twofold. It was an effort to keep the feed bill lower than our mortgage. That would be lovely. Everybody thinks that It's so nice we're not dependent on the grocery store, but we are still dependent on the feed store. So getting our numbers down was great for that cost of feed. Things like this and having the land to have the goats out is great. That takes the feed cost down. And then we were honestly getting overwhelmed with milk. It was a beautiful thing to happen, and it really forced me to explore a lot more into cheese making, and I made evaporated milk and we did hot fudge. I tried new cheese recipes. We were making yogurt all the time, but it was just a lot. We also filled the freezer already for just in case we're not milking this winter. So now we are milking Oreo, who is a Nubian, and Twinkle, who is a dwarf Nigerian. This stinker here is a terrible milker. She's more like a pet, but her baby just went to a new home. So we got like a cup of milk from her when we were weaning her, but she's more of a love bug. But between milking those two, we're getting half a gallon a day, and that's perfect for us. We could honestly use a little bit more, but half a gallon is perfect right now. We are also getting less than we would be because Oreo, we chose not to kid her out this spring. She had some issues kidding last year, if you remember, because our sheep had some issues impregnating some of our goats, and then our dwarf Nigerian had some issues reaching the full-size Nubian to breed. So Oreo kidded out in June, and we have actually been milking Oreo now every day consistently for over a year now, and probably 6 months now we've been milking her twice a day. So she's been absolutely phenomenal to have as a family dairy goat. I love her personality. And they are loving these carrot greens. I still find it amazing that they can take these things that are inedible to us and they turn it into delicious milk that can be used for so many things. hold steady for 20 minutes. My grandma tells me a story of pressure canning peas with her sister, and there were peas all over the ceiling. So I am so thankful that we get to do this outside. Okay.
What temperature is it?
86 outside. It's much cooler today, but we kept the house at 75 by doing all that canning outside. You can bring it on in. Thank you for your help. Those pigs will be happy with the wallow. Did the little piggies go through all the water already? They go through it so quick. Say that again.
I gave you one extra just in case.
Thank you. Hold steady, 90 minutes this time. Nothing is going to waste here today. They get all the scraps from making chicken noodle soup. I heard you, Sam. You just jumped in the pool. You did. Good night, Bumblebee. Happy summer. I don't. Did you? What do you think it's saying?
I don't know.
Whippoorwill or fire in the hole?
Whippoorwill. Find a hole.
Let's see if we can get this last batch of soup done before the storm comes in.